Welcome. I'm Charlene Horner, and I am currently working to support the district-wide reading initiative.
And I'm Carol Fry. I'm an instructional facilitator at Sonora Elementary.
Our topic today is kind of zooms in on the idea of conferring in small group work, specifically talking about developing toolkits so you are prepared to work with any reader at any time. This particular topic comes at a good time in implementation as you get more familiar with your tools that you have been provided with the reading units of study and tools that maybe you have in your own classroom, and how do you use those effectively and efficiently. So today we are bringing you this session, and hopefully you will leave here today with some ideas on how you might want to create your own toolkit or spur your imagination for how you would like to do this across contents.
So our guiding questions today are, what is a toolkit? Why use a toolkit? What is in a toolkit? How to use a toolkit? And where do I even start?
So what is a toolkit? In just regular daily terms, we think of a tool box or a toolkit as something that has all of your tools in one place. If you've ever tried to hang a picture, it is very helpful to have a toolbox with different sizes of nails, hammers, levels, everything to be in one place so it's efficient, and it's also effective because they are the correct tools for you to hang this picture. In our idea, in our world of literacy and education, there's something called a conferring toolkit, and the same idea is this. It's the same idea that you have this collection of tools so you are effective, and then also all in one place so you are efficient. A conferring toolkit is a collection of resources used to lift the level of your teaching through conferring and small group work. So that brings us to, why do we even use a toolkit? And so I think this is important to kind of go back to the research of Richard Allington. He's returned often to the three conditions that have readers thriving. 1, access to books that they find fascinating. 2, protected time to read. And 3, expert instruction. And so today we're going to kind of go into the idea of expert instruction. We know that the workshop framework, the structure of the workshop, allows for one teaching point in a whole group, one teaching point in maybe a small group, or one-on-one conferring. So fortunately, the workshop model allows for both of these things to happen on a daily basis. Digging a little further into the moves of a teacher in a mini lesson, effective teaching moves. You're connecting, you're naming the teaching point, you're teaching, you're providing time for active engagement, you're linking the work that students will do. In your small group work, you're observing teacher moves, you're questioning, you're listening, you're coaching, you're demonstrating, reinforcing the mini lesson, and encouraging and circulating. Lots of teacher moves are happening in both the mini lesson and in the conferring and small group work. That tells, with all those teacher moves, then we look at maybe the test model or Charlotte Danielson, effective teaching. We know that to be effective, expert instruction, we must demonstrate knowledge of content and pedagogy. We must engage our students in learning. We must use assessments and instruction, and we also should use questioning and discussion techniques. So with this effective teaching area here that we know to be effective, to give our kids effective instruction, a toolkit is a great way to have you be able to do that efficiently and effectively. A conferring toolkit is a collection of resources to lift the level of your teaching through conferring and small group work. So it's effective and efficient. What is in a toolkit?
Well, believe it or not, you already have the things that you might want or need in a starter toolkit. For example, within your reading units of study, you have a collection of resources. You have your guidebook. You have the Pathways book in the upper grades. All kits have a unit sticky notes for the anchor charts, trade books, and a plethora of online digital resources that you will be able to use for your starter toolkit. So, before we begin to unpack a real toolkit, or two, it is a good thing to know that what a toolkit is. A toolkit is portable, so it can be carried from table to table or student to student. It's also a living collection that will grow and change across units and over time. A toolkit is a collection of resources to support reteaching, pre-teaching, and targeting instruction. In this presentation, you have seen several pictures of toolkits. You probably noticed some similarities and differences, yet all toolkits are created to support the teacher's needs and the teacher's students' needs. So, as promised in the description, we have real toolkits to show. This is a video of a K2 toolkit.
This is my Reader's Workshop Toolkit. I have supplies in the front. This is my Reader's Workshop Toolkit. I have supplies in the front, pens, scissors, glue that I'm going to need for my contemporary, magnetic letters, my teacher resources, which includes interactive writing ideas, prompts, text level band characteristics. Next, I have student resources, lunch chart, ABC chart, and some pictures that we can use for language development with students, which we can just pull out the picture, label things we see in the picture, or use these for interactive writing. More student resources, anchor charts from our units. This is the anchor chart I show the students, and then I have takeaways in here that I can pull and leave with them after I conference with them or meet with them. Then I have all of my group information, each in a folder with documentation and assessment forms and data in the back. And then extra resources, mentor text that I can have with me as I conference, and whiteboard and extra post-it note stickies in the back.
So we were able to see how one teacher collected resources that she needed to help her be responsive to her students' needs. Now, for each grade level, these toolkits might look differently. For example, in K1, readers progress very quickly. And so having your whole class data at a glance within your toolkit can help you be responsive to the coaching that you might need to do with that child at that moment. Also, having those text span cheat sheets at your fingertips will help you quickly identify some of the work that is being asked of that reader in that level. It will help you understand the characteristics and reading behaviors expected at these levels, and it will help you explicitly teach what they need to pay attention to or what is tricky in that new text that they might be reading. Now we will take a look at another video. This video is for grades 3 through 7, so that you can see the differences and similarities between the two toolkits.
This is my demonstration notebook. So at the beginning I have markers and highlighters and colored things to help label things, sticky notes, etc. And then this next section I have teacher resources. So this is for my groups that I'm doing currently with Unit 3, but then I also have just things about how to meet with small groups and confer with students, questions to help ask and get them thinking about things and get their thinking moving. I also have this section, which is kind of an if-then. If a kid is doing this, here are suggestions on what to do, and they're kind of labeled by red flag and all the way down to blue flags and things like reading volume and stamina. Some more information about what to do for small group and conferring. This is a little thing from TC about writing workshop and reading workshop and read aloud and kind of a day by day and bend by bend what to do. Oh, sorry, I forgot this one. This was really helpful with my librarian. These are the books that my kiddos could use for the unit, and she has marked what we have, what we don't have, where to find it in the library. So she's been a really good source for us. The next part is text bands. So I have the different bands, what kinds of characteristics are going to be in those kinds of books, what kinds of things are tricky for kids at that level. These are currently the charts for my Unit 3 right now, just smaller samples of them, and then other charts and things that I could use to point out to kids, writers of information, when studying, things like that. This is nonfiction techniques and goals, and this has been really helpful lately. These I put on colored paper for the techniques in one color, goals in the other color. We cut them up, and so if a kid loses one, I can pull it out, but I can also use it as a way to help me kind of talk about it and use it to glue on here. And I have extra copies in case other kids lose whole things. I also have the progressions. So this is for Unit 3, or this is all for informational that I'm using in Unit 3. Here are smaller copies of just the strands that we're focusing on in Unit 3 that I can actually give to students. Student demonstrations, text and examples, so different copies of different things that they could use, and I could pull out and show what fifth graders could be doing. Scenario cards, and these are specific to the groups that I have right now, and then I also have smaller ones that I can pluck just for an individual group to talk to them about theirs. These are just some more demonstrations that I've got going to help me meet with groups. More forms to keep up with what I'm doing with groups and individuals and how often I'm meeting with them, goals for the next time we meet. Mentor text. These are also specific to the unit that I'm currently working on. And then some more of them back here in the back that I can pull out and share. And this is what we've been using.
All right, so let's debrief what we just saw. You were able to see a primary teacher using a toolkit and just now an intermediate teacher who used a toolkit to lift the level of students' learning. What did you notice that was the same or different? Also, I want you to notice a progression of how the supports for teacher and students get more complex.
All right, so since back up. Thank you to Sonora Elementary for allowing us to video the unpacking of the two toolkits. Thank you for doing that. We're going to have a little bit of turn and talk time just based on where we are in this session. You have just seen what's inside of a toolkit, just ideas of what's inside. We will then go into, how do you use this toolkit, but have a little bit of turn and talk time on the efficiency, the idea of having it all in one place, your thoughts on that. So we're going to set our timer for about 3 minutes, and hopefully y'all have are with your partners and you can have that conversation. And it might sound like something like, I used to think toolkits and now I think, or now I know, or this could help me with just some prompts to kind of get that conversation going. So for about 3 minutes, having the conversation of the efficiency of a toolkit and actually like, why do we even use a toolkit? We'll do that now. See you back in 3 minutes. we're going to have about 30 more seconds and then we'll start back up. Thanks. All right, welcome back. I hope you had some conversations about the efficiency of possibly having a toolkit and how that can help you maybe effectively confer or small group or even just plan instruction in general. You know, having all of these tools in one place definitely can help with that. All right, so, well, here we go. How do you use a toolkit is our next question. So far we've talked about like what does the research say about effective teaching, and then we talked about what is a toolkit, and then we actually unpacked two toolkits and saw what was inside them, and now we're on how do you use a toolkit to make sure that it is effective use of your resources. So one thing to note is Carol talked a lot about how a lot of these tools just are given to you through the reading units of study. You probably have some tools of your own as well. I think it's important to note that you might have these tools all in one place in your toolkit, but do you know the purpose for using them? It would be like having my toolbox for when I hang my picture, and I have all these tools in there that I don't necessarily know what the purpose for the tools are. They're just kind of taking up space and taking up room. So being mindful of what is in your toolkit is something to think about. And one way to do that is just like questioning, like, what's the purpose of this? Why do I have this? What's the purpose of this? Why do I have this? Okay. So purpose of mini charts, one thing to note, the mini charts teaches into a repertoire process and inquiry. Knowing that the progressions or micro-progressions support, extend, and clarify growth to kids and teachers. Actual student work that's in the units of study that shows students the how. Bands of text complexity, we talked about that with Carol, and I have a section later on today kind of just giving you an intro into bands of text complexity. Kind of sets you up for a personalized action plan. So making sure that we know when we put things in the toolkit what the purpose for the toolkit is. And a lot of times it may just be in a conversation with your PLC. Like, why do we even have this, Carol? And Carol can kind of talk through that with me, because sometimes we don't necessarily have a clear picture on what these resources are used, what's the main purpose of these resources. So you'll have thousands of all these resources, but really, like, do we need all of them is something that we question. All right. So
in this video, she's going to be demonstrating some ways to use a toolkit.
And this is a K2.
Yes.
Oh, I did it wrong. Sorry.
Well, I can help the little book is going up.
Okay, close your book. I want you to turn and talk to Luke about what happened in that story. Sophie, I want to talk to you and Luke about something that you can do to increase the conversation and the talking that you're having about your book. And it's also going to help you with your reading stamina. We've been talking a lot about that. I want you to look right here. I want to remind you, we've been talking about our stamina, and we want to be a superhero when it comes to stamina. And one way that you can do that is by talking about your book. And instead of just talking about the end, so Sophie, you just told Brooke, oh, at the end of this story, this is what happened. But Instead of doing just that, we can retell the whole story by saying, first this happened, next this happened, last this happened. Will you guys try that? Try that. Talk to your partner. Name it across your fingers. First.
The sun was out. The little book said sun was out. And then came
There you go, then he'll be able to hear you.
then came a big cloud, and then the wind came. And it went down on the boat, and then we started going in the water, but this big cloud came and helped us.
And don't forget, you can also name it across your fingers as you say it. And I have left a reminder for you in your reading map. So you can remember to talk about your book, and one way that you can do that, Luke, is by retelling the story, by saying first this happened, next this happened, and last this happened. Great reading today.
All right. So what we just saw, which I could watch those kids all day long.
And by the way, middle school, I just want you to know they have capes on because they have super reading powers. I just want you to know that, and they don't have to wear them, they choose to wear them. Thanks.
Yep. So we were able to see how one teacher used her toolkit. You would notice in that the being effective part of this is how she is showing. Not just telling about it, but showing. She was pointing to her teacher copy. She was pointing, and then she was giving an example of how she was naming it across her fingers using gestures. And then she was able also to leave an artifact, something in their reading folder that they could go back to and look at for their partnerships, and know that they have something to do after they read a book. One thing they can do is to retell the story, thinking about what happened first, next, and then last. It was also efficient. She didn't have to jump up from her area and run across the room to grab her artifacts that she wanted to leave, or her teaching point, to leave her teaching point with the students. She was able to have it all right there at her fingertips. Also, you notice that she had a clipboard in her lap where she was writing down notes, observing what the students were doing so that she could know know what to do to teach into those kids.
So all those teacher moves that we talked about in the beginning about effective teaching, she was doing all of those all in one setting, and having those tools all in one place is very helpful. Okay,
So here's another video demonstrating some ways to use a toolkit. This is an intermediate.
What did the gorilla book again? What did the gorilla book do when they provided their surprising statistics? Okay, and then what else did he do? Keep reading.
Once people found about it, they came to Africa and started hunting.
Okay, so then this author keeps giving you more information. Once they knew this, this is now what they did next. So let's look on here. So which of these goals do you think this author was trying to do by starting with that? Do you think they were trying to provide background information? Or since it's at the beginning, could they be trying to hook the reader there? So which one do you think they're trying to do?
Give background information.
Okay, so giving you more information so that they can tell you then what happened. What about this author? When they gave you that with the text feature?
All right. So again, you were able to see what one teacher did to what she did to use her toolkit to be responsive to a student's needs. Again, these are just some ways that a toolkit can be used. There are many more ways. But again, in this video, you'll notice more showing than just telling. She was pointing to the technique cards as she was discussing what the author did. How was it effective? It was effective because she was able to change her scaffold to support the student. She manipulated the cut up pieces. She was laying the technique cards down onto a goal sheet so that the student could actually see that concrete physical evidence that that author used for that description. And it was efficient because, again, she didn't have to go and hunt. It was all right there at her fingertips to be able to demonstrate right there.
I think also just recognizing the methods of teaching. You know, if we can perfect 5 or 4 simple methods of instruction, then we are effective across all contents and all grades. And so whether you're a kindergarten teacher or a 6th grade teacher, the methods of instruction are the same. And what you did see there was demonstration. You saw explain an example. You even saw some inquiry work. So the methods are the same. And if we can perfect those methods, then we can do that across all contents and across all grades. Okay? So the next part, probably the nitty-gritty, is like, how do I even start this? And recognizing, I think Carol did kind of hone in on, this is your own, like a snowflake. They are the unique. They are, your toolkit's going to look different from maybe your coworkers based on your students' needs and what works for you. So we're going to kind of go into like, where do I even start? But keeping that mindset of my toolkit might look a little different. Absolutely. These are just examples. Okay. So when you think about starting this, we start from the very basics. We know that our tools are meant to support reteaching, pre-teaching, and targeting instruction. Now, Carol might say differently with me because she likes them really cute, and cute is very important, but I'm going to go back to making sure that the tools support reteaching, pre-teaching, and targeting instruction. So we have all of these resources. You have tons of resources probably in your classrooms already. First step would be to gather the resources that you even have, and then actually sort them by student tools and by teacher tools. And so you might have lots of magnetic letters, or you might have lots of wipe-off boards that can be helpful, but those are, you'll need to decide what tools that you want to use in your toolkit. Then you have your teacher tools, and those are, you know, your assessment, tracking, how you're conferring with students, maybe past data, or maybe some tools to lean on for some prompting on how to get kids to strengthen their book club talk. Regardless, gather all your tools and then maybe sort them in teacher and in student tools. So when you've gathered all these tools, and you probably are finding at this point already that the reading units of study come with lots and lots of tools. One way to start is just printing off, like when you unpack your unit, you're going to probably have quite a few tools that come in the digital resources. One way to start is to print those off as your PLC unpacks that unit, possibly keeping those all in one place. Like you could have a folder with all the digital resources printed off. You could have a binder. You could have a tub. In my case, I have this little plastic sleeve that I have here, and I put the digital resources printed off in my actual unit. Right. Okay, so that's one place to start with all of these tools and resources that are given to you, especially as you're about ready to teach a new unit. Okay.
Then, like Charlene mentioned earlier, you're going to want to sort these materials. You have all these materials. Now let's zoom in and sort them into what is it that I will use with my students, and what is it that I will need to just have for myself to help me be responsive to their needs. So you will notice that you're going to sort them into student tools and teacher tools. you may print these things off. You may need to make a couple of things, cutting, gluing, with the resources that you already have. Also, use what you've gathered with the understanding. We know in education that we have to modify and adjust. That happens always. And so with these resources that you have, you might have to make some changes. Take some stuff out. If it gets too big, put some stuff in if you find out that you're missing something. For your students, that you want to leave some kind of artifact, a reminder that they can put in their reading folder or their reading notebooks. And then as a teacher, you have your parts of a text span cheat sheet that may be glued into a spiral demonstration notebook right here. So, or it could be that it's put into a protector sleeve in your toolkit binder. Many ways to do this.
And so, like what Carol's leading to about, like, almost thinking about, you've gathered all the materials, and then you've sorted them, and then you realize that you have some things that maybe you have to make a decision on what is the most important. And we call that curating your materials, like really making a decision on what you need and what you don't need. Honestly, I don't know that curate can even happen until you've actually used. So we talk about like gathering, sorting, and then actually using, and then refining and making adjustments, kind of like our where we are in this process this year. We're going to teach the units and then think about the refining and the adaptation for next year based on us actually doing the teaching this year. Same would go for your toolkits. So curating probably comes the next step, is just kind of thinking about, like, is this the best tool for me, or is this the best tool for me to demonstrate something? So we talk about like curating libraries or a museum curator. We do the same in our toolkits. You would want the very best tools in there so you are efficient and effective. I think this is kind of neat to understand that toolkits don't just have to be literacy. You could certainly think about how you could build a toolkit that was content specific, maybe in writing or in math or in social studies, creating these toolkits so you are efficient and effective. Then we have, maybe you might even veer off and think that you want to have a genre specific toolkit, and that's perfectly fine too. Again, this is all what it works best for you. If your toolkit's getting this big, it might be time to maybe like curate and decide, or it might be time to maybe spread out and put them into different unit toolkits, and that's certainly okay too. And then to kind of hit on the digital toolkits, that's a whole nother piece to this whole puzzle. Is if you're a person this makes you sweat, all this Post-its and everything, then there is the option obviously to have a digital toolkit. And so I'm working on that right now, of like building a digital one up, and I'd love to maybe kind of collaborate with a teacher. If you're wanting to do something like that, contact me, because that certainly would be kind of a gift that we could give others if we collaborated on that together.
Okay. Our hope is that you will plan times to get together to make these teaching tools. A makerspace, a place in which people with shared interests can gather to work on projects while sharing ideas, equipment, and knowledge. At Sonora, we have had a couple of makerspace unit toolkit times, and I feel like the teachers are starting to use these. It is a lot of work, but we have tried to really put all of these together in one place for you. Here you have some stuff to make the toolkits. Of course, you see in front of you binders, mentor text, sheet protectors, colored sticky notes, baggies, a plethora of supplies that you have already in your room. If you click on the link at the bottom of the page, Toolkit Possibilities, you will notice we have it broken down for you what this would look like. Materials and supplies, teacher resources, and then student resources. So we are going to, you also we have access, you have access to a link, and within this link there are folders where we have tried to compile all of these resources together for you, and they're in 2 folders, conferring and then small groups. We will continue to add to this also. And then don't forget your digital online resources that you have with your units of study.
Okay. Let me see here. Okay, so in sum, I think it's important for us to just kind of bring together. Our goal today was to kind of show you how you can create a toolkit and how you can use a toolkit efficiently and effectively, kind of like your toolbox that you would carry around when you are hanging your picture, having your tools all in one place. I like this quote, I can't just tell kids what to do, I have to show them what to do. So a lot of these things in these toolkits are meant for you to actually show kids, have more time of showing rather than just telling kids, because we know that's effective instruction as well. Then conferring is not the icing on the cake, it is the cake. Carl Anderson. And then we have the to be continued, the next step to this. So while you've gathered your tools, then you've sorted your tools, and then possibly started to work towards curating these tools, part 2, the Carol and Charlene show, would be on actually creating tools. And we're probably not there yet, but that is a step that you can kind of think in that next direction of how to create micro-progressions, how to create demonstration notebooks, how to create bookmarks with your children. But that's part 2. Okay? Then I'm leaving you here with kind of promoting the Innovation Institute. I want to wrap with the first 5 people who hashtag Springdale Reads on Facebook will receive a starter toolkit. So let me say that again. The first 5 people to hashtag Springdale Reads on Facebook, we will get you a starter kit of some of the tools for you to get started making a toolkit, whether it's for kindergarten or 10th grade, and then whether it's for reading or writing. All of these tools can be replicated. And we sure do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.